Hello everyone, I'm Pastor Ben Lowell from the Rawson New Hope United Methodist Church. I want to share with you a story of two women who are mentioned briefly in the Bible, and yet they have a very important place in biblical history, I believe. They're found in the book of Exodus, which is the second book of the Old Testament. We have Genesis and then Exodus. And they're in chapter 1, verses 15 through 21. If you remember the story of the people of Israel, Joseph, an Israelite himself, had been taken into Egypt after his brothers sold him into slavery, and he went down and God miraculously helped him and brought him through terrible times, and he ended up being second in command of Egypt, second only to the Pharaoh. And when a famine came upon all the land, Pharaoh said, "Why don't you bring all your family down? Joseph, your brothers, your sisters, all their kids." And so they all came down. Your father, everyone. And so the people of Israel settled in the land of Goshen in Egypt. And there they grew and multiplied. And the book of Exodus chapter 1 says in verse 7, "The children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them." And here's the problem. There arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. How quickly people can forget. We see that in our own country. One generation or even less. And important people are disregarded or forgotten. And the Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of Israel are getting more and more, and they're almost as many as we are, or mightier than we are. So we have to deal shrewdly with them." And then they made slaves out of the people of Israel and put them to hard work. And the Egyptians became their taskmasters. And they were put to work building cities and doing slave labor for them. And then it was that the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh, said, I'm scared about too many of these Hebrews growing up. One of them might become a deliverer for the people of Israel. And he then spoke to two Hebrew midwives. I think there's a TV show called Call the Midwives. This story could be called Call the Midwives, but later. The two Hebrew midwives' names were Shiphrah and Puah. And those are the ladies that are so important to us today. Shiphrah and Puah. And they are midwives. And my translation of the Bible says that they are Hebrew midwives. I've seen others that don't have the word Hebrew in there. They just say midwives. So whether they are Hebrew or Egyptian midwives who feared God, who became, Israelite by faith, I don't know. But this translation says they are Hebrew midwives, so we'll go with that. Shiphrah, by the way, means beautiful. And Puah means young lady, a young woman. He said to them, when you are going about doing the work of a midwife, and you are with the Hebrew women giving birth, if it's a girl baby, you can let the baby live. But if it's a male baby, then you shall kill him. And so genocide for the Hebrew children. And the midwives didn't want to do this. They thought it was the wrong thing. So Shiphrah and Puah, and we don't know if they were the only two midwives for all the women of Israel, or if they were more like in charge of others, like over them. But they said, we're not going to do that. They didn't tell Pharaoh that. But Shiphrah and Puah talked to each other and said, this is not right, this is not good. It's against what we believe, it's against our morals, and we're not going to do what the Pharaoh says. If we come up with a plan, maybe we can work it out that these young male babies can live. And so what they did was, if they got a call that a midwife was needed, they didn't go. They waited. Maybe a few weeks, maybe or a few days, maybe a few weeks, and then they would go, and the baby's already born, it's already taken care of, maybe it's put into hiding because the people know about the Pharaoh's orders. Whatever it was, they didn't get there in time to harm the baby. So Shiphrah and Puah stood up for their own beliefs and their rights and helped to save many, many Hebrew babies, male children. And if you keep reading, right after that, it's the story of the birth of Moses. And so Shiphrah and Puah may have had a hand, I believe they did, in allowing Moses to survive. And if you remember, Moses, when he was born, his mother took him and put him in a little basket and put it down the river and down the Nile. And it eventually ended up near the home of one of Pharaoh's daughters, and she took it into her home, raised him as an Egyptian. But see, they were trying to save the baby from Pharaoh, and they had time to do all this because women like Shiphrah and Puah, and perhaps those two in particular, didn't do what the Pharaoh ordered. In some ways, it's the first time in history that we read about civil disobedience. Someone who says, I know that you've ordered me to do something, but my conscience does not allow me to act upon what you've said. And so the excuse they gave Pharaoh when he calls them and says, hey, I heard that there are Hebrew babies being born, these little boys, they said, you know, we go there, but the Hebrew women are so strong, they're so lively, that they give birth easily, no problem, and, you know, nothing for us to do when we get there. So, how interesting. The stories of Shiphrah and Puah. And I just wanted to commend that to you, because sometimes we wonder about, you know, if we're told to do something and we think it's not right, what should we do? If someone who is over us tells us to do something, and Shiphrah and Puah are the first examples in the Bible or any place else that we know of where they said our conscience, what we think of from God and what we do for God, is more important than what we do for anyone else. So that's the thought for the day, to stand up for what you believe in, and even if it means taking a risk of offending people you work for or whatever it is. Shiphrah and Puah. And I pray that you will be strong in your faith, that you will know what is right and what is wrong, and that this story maybe can even help you as you go on making decisions in your life. God bless you and have a good day.